today. Chad Lyer from Aero Service Team is joining me again this morning. And Chad, a couple of weeks ago we talked about fire damage in a home, and we said that we would get to water damage, and that's what we're going to discuss a little bit today, as that ties into homeowners insurance policy too, and we'll tell people what they should be looking for.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I chose this topic is a lot of times when people have a problem at their house, they don't know what to do. And like we talked about before, is if you don't know what to do, get some resources, but generally do what would be normal even if you don't have insurance. You know, wipe up the water, start doing those simple things, you know, shutting off, stopping the water.
The most obvious, stop the source if you can, and sometimes you can't. We're going to talk about some of that because it's probably hidden behind walls or it's hidden under the floor, because I have experience with that. That happened to me a couple of years ago, and we'll touch on that. But I wanted to mention one of the stats that from the information that you gave me was the average claim to an insurance company with water damage in the home is about $11,000, so it is a big ticket item.
Yeah, you know, in our market, that job size has increased. We were probably at about $6,000 10 years ago, and just how everything else has gone up. Yeah, that average job size in our market is maybe a slight bit below that, but it's pretty close to that $11,000 mark.
Okay, you've got a pipe there, and I know you wanted to show and talk about that a little bit, but talk about what happens if a homeowner has a pipe burst, whether that froze or whatever reason, maybe just age. Talk to me about pipes breaking in the home.
Well, pipes breaking in a home is a common occurrence, whether it wasn't put together right or it got cold and froze and cracked. Like I brought this one, I don't know if you'll be able to get a full-on close-up of it, but this is an outside water spigot, and it cracked from being frozen because it didn't drain properly.
Okay.
Now these types of losses generally are covered by your homeowner's policy.
Does it matter whether the leak is inside the home or outside the home, or doesn't it matter?
You're getting into gray areas there, but as a standard, anything with inside the home with the internal plumbing should be a covered loss, as long as it's sudden and incidental. Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this situation is one of those where, whether it's in the spring or in the fall, you hear you've got a hose connected to the outside of the home. You hear it's supposed to get down to 20 degrees that night. You want to make darn sure that hose is disconnected, because that's where the crack and the breakage comes from.
Yeah, you know, when you have your hose on here, and especially if you have a sprayer on there, it stays charged up and that water backs up. It doesn't drain out of this part of the pipe, and then that ice goes back and freezes it, and that's how you get that crack.
Very similar to what happens with a roof when it backs up there, and you end up having issues in your attic, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah, that's a nice dam. This is not take your hose off, I guess.
There you go. That's something that seriously, and it's never happened to me, but I've had people tell me about it happening to them, and then you don't know it until maybe the next spring. If it happens in the fall, you don't realize you had the issue until next spring. You turn on the water, and all of a sudden you've got a shower going on in the inside of your house.
Yeah, and the problem is you have a shower going on inside the house, and you're most likely outside the house.
Exactly. Till you come in and you realize you've watered the carpet really nice.
Yeah, so if you, a tip, just kind of a little pro pointer, is if you are going to turn your water on for the first time of the year, if you kink that hose right out by the spigot, you'll hear the water shut off.
There you go.
And if it's spraying still, you know you have a problem.
That's a good point, because we're getting to that period of time where spring is right around the corner. All right, this happened to me a couple of years ago. The line between the water line to my refrigerator for my ice maker somehow had a leak, and it was under the floor, and all of a sudden I noticed my floor is kinking up. What about insurance policies to help when an appliance is malfunctioning?
Well, if an appliance malfunctions, generally that is a covered peril on most homeowners insurance again.
Okay.
You know, you got to dig into your own personal policies, and can't represent everything, but in general that is covered. But the key is, as long as it's sudden and incidental. So if this is going on for months, it may not be a covered thing. So you got to be attentive to those things. You see a problem, make sure you're not going to walk by it forever. And the majority of those problems come from what I brought here. Is like, these are from washing machines, kind of two different quality levels, if you will. And we call these water supply lines. Obviously for a dishwasher, some of them are smaller, and for a ice maker for a fridge. And that's something that on a washing machine, you should take an eye and just kind of get an eye onto that every couple of years, and just make sure there's not like any big bulges or anything like that, where you can start seeing things, or it's rusting and corroding or anything like that.
Either of these two materials that you would recommend over the other?
It used to be the stainless steel or the braided one was a lot better. I've heard the other ones have improved, but
Sure. Okay.
I guess I would probably go with this one if it was my personal preference.
All right. Something happens in your home, it's vandalized, you have water damage. Where does a person go from there, and is that covered?
There again, vandalism for the most part is a covered peril underneath most insurance policies. Everyone's is slightly different, so make sure you
Right.
consult with your agent. But yes, if someone comes into your house, intentionally floods it, turns on things that you shouldn't have
Right.
had on, that is covered.
Okay. What about you have a fire and the fire hose is used and you get water all over your house? I suppose that falls under fire, I suppose.
That does, and it's also covered underneath the water damage.
Okay.
Funny thing about just about every fire loss we have is there's some sort of water damage on the project.
Okay. One of the things you talk about is making sure you protect your home, both inside and out, and there are some tips that you have, first of all, for protecting your home from the inside.
Yeah, from the inside, just like we talked about already, make sure you check those connections every now and then. I personally had an issue at my house today.
Okay.
I went into my mechanical room, and I have an appliance leaking a little bit of water.
Okay.
I hadn't been in there in a month, but I can see it's been going on for a while, and it's only this big, but that could obviously get worse.
Okay.
So yeah, just kind of checking around the house, making sure that you know where your water shutoff valve is and everyone that would be around.
That's such a good point because, like you mentioned a while ago, the first thing you want to do is shut off the source and then clean up the water before you go further than that. So if you don't know where the main is and things like that, you're not going to be able to stop the problem from continuing.
Yeah, no, that's the main thing is just making sure that you understand all of that, and just just sometimes maybe every couple of years when you have a service person there looking at your furnace, I just look around check all your other fixtures and things like that.
Okay, if the situation is bad, I suppose there are some personal belongings that you want to take care of first.
Yeah, personal property is always one thing that you just is probably more important. Obviously the person is the most important of the people, and then the personal property that you can't replace, and then the property, because you can always fix property.
Bottom line, know what your insurance covers.
Know what your insurance covers, and one other question that we've had a lot is if you make human error, yes, that is covered too.
Sure.
So,
okay.
For instance, if you block off your sink, walk away, and forget to turn it off.
Start your bathtub.
Exactly. Things like that.
And pretty soon you're sitting in the lower level, you're going, why do I hear this dripping sound? And all of a sudden you've got a dam that broke upstairs and you got yourself a deluge. All right, tell us where we can find Aero Service Team and how you guys can help.
We're in Bismarck here, 2925 East Broadway Avenue. Our phone number is 701-223-9249. We're actually in Bismarck and Dickinson now.
Okay.
I think I forgot to mention that prior. And you can go to our website at aeroserviceteam.com. They'll pretty much explain everything that we do, pictures, all kinds of YouTube videos and things like that. You can gain a little knowledge.
All right, fire damage, water damage, whatever it is that you're thinking that you could use help with, Chad and the folks here at Aero Service Team are the people to give a call to. Chad, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Wayne.
All right, Chad Lyer, Aero Service Team. We're going to take a break. We've got more coming up on North Dakota.